Hello, welcome back. My name is PJ and I am an alcoholic. Hope you're having a good Sunday. We're going to get into the big book study the way I see it. Why is it the way that I see it? The only way that I can talk about it is the way I see it. That being said, is the way that I see it is a little bit different. Is a little bit different than the way I seen things 5 years ago, 10 years ago. A little bit of a psychic shift, a psychic change. Some people might call it a spiritual awakening, an awakening. I don't know. I see things more clearly and I see them in such a way that allows me to be okay on a daily basis, to be okay without the alcohol, to be okay without the drugs, just to be okay. Yeah, yeah, I'm okay. And I wasn't always that way. Restless, irritable, discontent, anxious, depressed, social anxiety, fear, all of that stuff. Feeling uncomfortable in my own skin. Because of all that, oh boy, was it nice to get the relief that alcohol provided. Alcohol was a good solution. It was a good solution for the way that I was feeling. It was a really good solution for the way that I was feeling. That being said, if that solution did not turn out to be sustainable, the solution of alcohol started to cause me more and more and more problems. And then ultimately the solution started to fail in itself. And I did not get emotional relief from the alcohol and from the drugs anymore. And then I was just left with that baseline misery exacerbated by years of wreckage. And boy, oh boy, was I in a shitty situation. That being said, as you saw, chapter 1, Bill's story, he was experiencing a similar go of things. And towards the end of the chapter, you can see that he applied a few practices to his life and things changed. He started feeling better. Life started to get better. He created this a strategy for recovery. I talk about that a lot in life. And life is, I need a strategy. I need a strategy when I'm going to do something. And he tested some things out and it seemed to work. And he put it together in this book for us. Strategy, a solution for our alcoholism, for our depression, for our anxiety, for our restlessness, for our irritability, for our discontent. He put together what is a solution that we are going to chat about here. Chapter 2, there's a solution. Let's get into it. I'm gonna adjust the audio a little bit. I'm hoping that it's not super loud on you guys' end. I don't want it to be too quiet. I like it. I like a little bit of music in the background. Keeps the flow going. Chapter 2, there is a solution. We of Alcoholics Anonymous know thousands of men and women who were once just as hopeless as Bill. Nearly all of them have recovered. They have solved the drink problem. We are average Americans, all sections of this country, and many of its occupations are represented, as well as many political, economic, social, and religious backgrounds. We are people who normally would not mix, but there exists among us a fellowship, a friendliness, and an understanding which is indescribably wonderful. We are like the passengers of a great liner the moment after rescue from shipwreck, when camaraderie, joyousness, and democracy pervade the vessel from steerage to the captain's table. Camaraderie, joyousness across the whole ship, the whole community. Unlike the feelings of the ship's passengers, however, our joy and escape from disaster does not subside as we go our individual ways. The feeling of having shared in common peril is one element of the powerful cement which binds us, but that itself would never have held us together as we are now joined. But that in itself. All right, so yes, together, the fellowship, our ability to look at each other, one alcoholic to another, knowing that the playing field of life has been leveled. We have all been humbled or yet to be humbled by alcoholism. Most of the time, by the time you're reading this book, on some level, you have had your butt handed to you, and you're humbled. Maybe you're scared. Some of this addiction stuff gets pretty scary at times. Scary, frustrating, inconvenient at the least. So here we are, and we all get together and practice this solution together. I don't think there's any other social construct, some social community that has succeeded in such a way that Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous has. I don't think that there is. It's a really, really interesting, cool thing that this has grown across the entire world in the way that it has. Let's keep going. The tremendous fact for every one of us is that we have discovered a common solution. We have a way out on which we can absolutely agree and upon which we can join in brotherly and harmonious action. This is great news. This is the great news this book carries to those who suffer from alcoholism. I want to take a step back. We're talking about the solution, discovered a common solution. We've discovered a common solution. Let's get that highlighted. But so here, up here, they have solved the drinking problem. The drink problem, right? It's important to highlight and to point out. This will get into it further in the book, but the drink problem, the drink was the solution. I talked about it before we started reading. The drink was the solution for our restlessness, for our irritability, for our discontent, for our depression, for our anxiety. It was a solution, and it was a good solution. It was a good solution until it stopped. Till it stopped working or it started giving us more problems, right? The problem is me. The problem is the way that I feel without alcohol and drugs, right? That's the problem. Alcohol was the solution. Now, this chapter 2, there's a solution. This is what I need to look to start utilizing instead of the alcohol, instead of the drugs. An illness of this sort, and we have come to believe an illness involves those about us in a way no other human sickness can. If a person has cancer, all are sorry for him and no one is angry or hurt, but not so with the alcoholic illness. For with it there goes annihilation of all things worthwhile in life. It engulfs all whose lives touch the sufferers. It brings misunderstanding, fierce resentment, financial insecurity, disgusted friends and employers, warped lives of blameless children, sad wives and parents. Anyone can increase the list, right? So rather, in contrast to cancer, sad that someone gets cancer, right? Alcoholism, let the wreckage begin. Let the mess making, the heartbreaks, the anger, the sadness, it's a mess. It's a mess. We hope this volume will inform and comfort those who are or who may be affected. There are many of us, our family members, our kids, our bosses, our spouses. Highly competent psychiatrists who have dealt with us have found it sometimes impossible to persuade an alcoholic to discuss his situation without reserve. Strangely enough, wives, parents, and intimate friends usually find us more unapproachable than do the psychiatrist and the doctor. Let's keep going. But the ex-problem drinker who has found the solution, who is properly armed with facts about himself, can generally win the entire confidence of another alcoholic in a few hours. Until such an understanding is reached, little or nothing can be accomplished. Right? This is why it's so important for me to try to be talking to you guys, for the guys who did it for me to trying to be talking to me, because I need someone who understands. And it's not an easy thing to understand. Someone who's not an alcoholic, someone who's not an addict does not know what that pull is like. There's a lot of elements of this that are almost impossible to understand. Just the same way that I don't understand how normies can have a few and put them down. It's just like, it doesn't make sense to me. So, so important for you, whoever you are listening, apply some of this solution to your life, and then go talk to the next guy who is desperate for a better life and chat with him, build some rapport, lead by attraction. Let him know, like, don't let him see that you have inner peace and happiness, right? And he said, how do you do it? Then bring him this way, bring him our way. We're gonna help him get right. That the man who is making the approach has had the same difficulty, that he obviously knows what he is talking about, that his whole deportment shouts at the new prospect that he is a man with a real answer, that he has no attitude of holier than thou, nothing whatever except the sincere desire to be helpful, that there are no fees to pay, no axes to grind, no people to please, no lectures to be endured. These are the conditions we have found most effective. After such an approach, many take up their beds and walk again, right? I guess this is what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to approach some people, whoever ends up hearing this, I'm trying to approach and let you guys know that, like, boy, oh boy, do I know what it feels like, whether it's alcohol or drugs. I've done them both different times in my life. I qualify for the whole gambit of things. I know what it's like. I know the dark depths of hell it brings to you. And here I sit. You guys, I'm having fun. My Sunday, I want to talk to you guys. So here I am. None of us make a sole vocation of this work, nor do we think it's effective. Its effectiveness would be be increased if we did, right? So this is not my job. This is not my job right now on YouTube chatting with you guys. I'm doing this for fun, for free. Sunday evening, getting down with my fellow alcoholics, my homies. We feel that elimination of our drinking is but a beginning, right? So this is just like something we've got to do before we can get right. A much more important demonstration of our principles lies before us in our respective homes, occupations, and affairs. All of us spend much of our spare time in the sort of effort which we're going to describe. A few are fortunate enough to be so situated that they can give nearly all of their time to the work. Right? Not me yet. Not me. I gotta go work. I gotta go work a normal job still. Not retired yet. If we keep on the way we are going, there is little doubt that much good will result. But the surface of the problem would hardly be scratched. Those of us who live in large cities are overcome by the reflection that close by hundreds are dropping into oblivion every day. Many could recover if they had the opportunity we have enjoyed. How then shall we present that which has been so freely given to us? Well, it's going to tell us, but this is really, I guess this is really what I'm trying to do here, right? Why am I on here talking to myself right now? Trying to present what was so freely given to me. We have concluded to publish an anonymous volume setting forth the problem as we see it. So this book is them trying to give it away. Me reading this book is me trying to give away what was freely given to me, right? Makes sense? We have concluded to publish an anonymous volume setting forth the problem as we see it. We shall bring to the task our combined experience and knowledge. This should suggest a useful program for anyone concerned with a drinking problem. So this should suggest a useful program, right? So that's what the book tries to do. A useful program. So it being a little bit written old style, it's a little hard to understand. I want to help you guys break it down so you can find a way to apply this program into your life. Here we are, December 2022, 70 or 80 years after this was written. Of necessity, there'll have to be a discussion of matters medical, psychiatric, social, and religious. We are aware that these matters are, for their very nature, controversial. Nothing would please us so much as to write a book which could contain no bias for contention or argument. We shall do our utmost to achieve that ideal. Most of us sense that real tolerance of other people's shortcomings and viewpoints and a respect for their opinions are attitudes which make us more useful to others. Our very lives as ex-prom drinkers depend on our constant thought of others and how we may help meet their needs. So yes, patience, love, and tolerance, right? Real tolerance of other people's shortcomings and viewpoints. Like I'm open. I'm open to hear it. I'm open to hear whatever, I'm always open to hear. I realized I was wrong for so many years, teens and 20s, about certain things. Here I am in my 30s, and I might be wrong again. So I'd love to hear different opinions and viewpoints, because I keep an open mind. You may already have asked yourself why it is that all of us became so very ill from drinking. Doubtless you are curious to discover how and why, in the face of an expert opinion to the contrary, we have recovered from a hopeless condition of mind and body. If you are an alcoholic who wants to get over it, you may already be asking, what do I have to do? Right? This is kind of where I was at. I came in this. I'm just telling me what to do. I know nothing about being happy. I know nothing about being sober. I know nothing about being happy, sober. My life is absolutely terrible. What do I do? Tell me what to do. I'm going to do it. Is the purpose of this book to answer such questions? Specifically, we should tell you what we have done. Before going into detailed discussion, it may be well to summarize some points as we see them. How many times people have said to us, I can take it or leave it alone. Why can't he? Why don't you drink like a gentleman or quit? That fellow can't handle his liquor. Why don't you try beer and wine? Lay off the hard stuff. His willpower must be weak. He could stop if he wanted to. She's such a sweet girl. I think he'd stop for her sake. The doctor told him that if he ever drank again, it would kill him, but there he is, all lit up again. Now, these are commonplace observations on drinkers which we hear all the time. Back of them is a word of ignorance and misunderstanding. We see that these expressions refer to people whose reactions are very different from ours. People whose reactions to alcohol, right, are very different than ours. As I was saying earlier, is that these people just don't understand, and I don't need them to understand. That's the thing, is I don't recover and then get everybody else to understand what was going on. I recover, I go about my life, not concerned about all the people who didn't understand. But they also don't get the opportunity to have the same elevated quality of life as if I was never an alcoholic at all, right? So people who aren't alcoholic, people who aren't addict, they don't understand our alcoholism or addiction, but they also don't have the same opportunity to understand and to participate in our new excellent quality of life that is on the other side of alcoholism in this solution. Moderate drinkers have little trouble in giving up liquor entirely if they have good reason for it. They can take it or leave it alone. Then we have a certain type of hard drinker. He may have the habit badly enough to gradually impair him physically and mentally. It may cause him to die a few years before his time. If a sufficiently strong reason, ill health, falling in love, changing of environment, or the warnings of a doctor becomes operative, this man can also stop or moderate, although he may find it difficult and troublesome and may even need medical attention. But what about the real alcoholic? He may start off as a moderate drinker. He may or may not become a continuous hard drinker, but at some stage of his drinking career, he begins to lose all control of his liquor consumption once he starts to drink. Here's the fellow who has been puzzling you, especially in his lack of control. He does absurd, incredible, tragic things while drinking. He is a real Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. He is seldom mildly intoxicated. He is always more or less insanely drunk. His disposition while drinking resembles his normal nature but a little. He may be one of the finest fellows in the world, yet let him drink for a day, and he frequently becomes disgustingly and even dangerously antisocial. He has a positive genius for getting tight at exactly the wrong moment, particularly when some important decision must be made or engagement kept. He is often perfectly sensible and well balanced concerning everything except liquor, but in that respect he is incredibly dishonest and selfish. He often possesses special abilities, skills, and aptitudes, and has a promised career ahead of him. He uses his gifts to build up a bright outlook for his family and himself, and then pulls the structure down on his head by a senseless series of sprees. He is the fellow who goes to bed so intoxicated he ought to sleep the clock around, yet early next morning he searches madly for the bottle he misplaced the night before. If he can afford it, he may have liquor concealed all over his house to be certain no one gets his entire supply away from him to throw down the waste pipe. As matters grow worse, he begins to use a combination of high-powered sedatives and liquor to quiet his nerves so he can go to work. Then comes the day when he simply cannot make it and gets drunk all over again. Perhaps he goes to a doctor who gives him morphine or some sedative with which to taper off. Then he begins to appear at hospitals and sanitariums. So that was a mouthful. And you know, just as if if you want out, and you want to say, nah, yeah, that's not me. See, I'm not a. It says here, what about the real alcoholic, right? You know, um, sometimes I chat with my dad about some of this just because he's curious. In my eyes, alcoholism is a disease of obsession, and I'm restless, irritable, and discontent without the alcohol. That's a big qualifier for me. If you're restless, irritable, and discontent, and you don't want to be restless, irritable, and discontent anymore, you can follow these steps and you can find solution from those things. But yes, with drug addiction, with alcoholism, a lot of us do end up here, right? So if you're not there yet, that's good. I would like to emphasize that yet, because I wasn't here yet the first time I went to an AA meeting. Fast forward 10 years. Oh yeah. So super grateful for all the adversity that was bestowed upon me during my alcoholism and addiction over those 10 years. It makes me a very, very grateful individual modern day. But just be careful. Don't count yourself out if you think that you have a problem with alcohol. Don't count yourself out if that's not you yet, because it's like the alcoholic grim reaper is following you. Let's keep going. This is by no means a comprehensive picture. Here we go. This is by no means a comprehensive picture of the true alcoholic, as our behavior patterns vary. But this description should identify him roughly. Why does he behave like this? If hundreds of experiences have shown him that one drink means another debacle with all its attending suffering and humiliation, why does he take that one drink? Why can't he stay on the water wagon? What has become of the common sense and willpower that he still sometimes displays with respect to other matters? Perhaps there will never be a full answer to these questions. Opinions vary considerably as to why the alcoholic reacts differently from normal people. We are not sure why. Once a certain point is reached, little can be done for him. We cannot answer the riddle. We know that while the alcoholic keeps away from the drink, as he may do for months or years, he reacts much like other men. We are equally positive that once he takes any alcohol whatsoever in his system, something happens, both in the bodily and mental sense, both in the bodily and mental sense, which makes it virtually impossible for him to stop. The experience of any alcoholic will abundantly confirm this. So perhaps there will never be full answers to these questions. I like to make peace with it. I do not know the answers for everything, and I just make peace with that I'm an alcoholic, and that's the way certain things are. You know, sometimes my girlfriend will be asking me, she's like, because I'll be like, oh, I'm kind of down and out, or I'm anxious, or and I'm not very often depressed or anxious anymore, but I am. And she's like, oh, what's going on? Tell me what happened. And I'm just like, all I can say is that I've been like this my whole life, and it's sometimes I'm feeling some type of way, and I don't got a reason, and I guess it's because I'm an alcoholic. I'm an alcoholic because I'm an alcoholic. Sometimes I've got shit going on that has no explanation besides that I'm an alcoholic. And if the problem is that I'm an alcoholic, then this chapter right here brings it back home that there is a solution for what it is that I'm feeling. Let's keep going. These observations would be academic and pointless if our friend never took the first drink, thereby setting the terrible cycle in motion. Therefore, the main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than his body. If you ask him why he started on the last bender, the chances are he will offer you one of 100 alibis. Sometimes these excuses have a certain plausibility, but none of them really make sense in the light of the havoc an alcoholic's drinking bout creates. They sound like the philosophy of man who I love this part. Why'd you take the drink, right? They sound like the philosophy of the man who, having a headache, beats himself on the head with a hammer so that he can't feel the ache. If you draw this fallacious reasoning to the attention of an alcoholic, he will laugh it off or become irritated and refuse to talk. Right? So I got all these problems. I've got all these problems from alcohol, and then I end up drinking again, right? Yeah, yeah. I just keep doing it despite it causing me more and more problems. Let's look at this. Whoops. We haven't we haven't looked any words up yet this chapter. Let's take a look. Let's take a look. Based on a mistaken belief. Fallacious, based on a mistaken belief. So if you draw this reasoning based on a mistaken belief to the attention of an alcoholic, he'll laugh it off or become irritated and refuse to talk. Yeah, I don't know. You asked me why I picked up again. I'd be like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know why I did it, but I did it. I stopped trying to figure shit out a long time ago. I surrendered to being an alcoholic way before then I surrendered to taking suggestion and a program that would help me feel better. Why did I drink? Why did I pick up the alcohol again? Oh, because I'm an alcoholic. That's what I do. Once in a while, he may tell the truth, and the truth, strange to say, is usually that he has no idea why he took the drink, more idea why he took that first drink than you have, right? So here's where the stuff finally it starts resonating for me because it's happened a few times since I started reading this. It's I'm like talking about my life, and then like I jump into the next paragraph, and it's like, well, bam, like right there, right? So once in a while, I may tell the truth, and the truth, strange to say, is usually they had no more idea why he took the first drink than you have. So, right? Anyways, let's keep going. Boom. Some drinkers have excuses with which they are satisfied part of the time, but in their hearts, they really do not know why they do it. Once this malady has a real hold, they are baffled a lot. There's the obsession that somehow, someday, they will beat the game, but they often suspect they are down for the count. Right? Like just like any activity in life, I thought that with a little bit of time and effort and practice, because I was dedicated to being able to drink and use successfully. And I thought that with a little practice, I was going to be able to obtain that. So, uh, so some drinkers have excuses with which they are satisfied part of the time, right? So here, an excuse. Oh, my anxiety. If my anxiety wasn't so bad, I wouldn't drink. I wouldn't drink so much. Valid. Valid. Sold it to myself. Hook, line, and sinker. It was true. If my anxiety wasn't so bad, I wouldn't drink so much. Well, so why is your anxiety so bad? I don't know. I don't know why my anxiety is so bad. Why is my depression so bad? I don't know why my depression is so bad. My life is pretty good. Like at least on paper, I have it. But see, that's the I don't know. Why is your anxiety so bad? I don't know. Why is your depression so bad? I don't know. Right? And sure, you can blame everything around you, but like really, I don't know why my anxiety is so bad. I don't know. I don't know. So that is the alcoholism, my anxiety, my depression, my restlessness, my irritability, my discontent, all those things that make it so attractive for me to have a drink. So we tie this all together. I don't know why I drink. I'm an alcoholic. What do you mean you're an alcoholic? I'm restless, irritable, discontent, anxious. I'm depressed when I don't have alcohol. Alcohol makes me feel better. So that's why I drink, because I'm restless, irritable, discontent, depressed, and anxious. Once I start drinking, I can't stop. That's another component of this. But it's super important to tie this all together. And that, like, yeah, my anxiety, this, I'm here. I am having worked a spiritual program in recovery. My anxiety, my depression is all 90%, 95, 98, depending on the day, better because I've treated my alcoholism. What's my alcoholism? Restless, irritable, discontent, anxious, depressed. Let's go. How true is this? If you realize how true this is, if you realize in a vague way, their families and friends sense that these drinkers are abnormal, but everybody hopefully awaits the day when the sufferer will rouse himself from his lethargy and assert his power of will. Mm. You'll be waiting. You'll be waiting for a while if you're waiting for me to willpower this thing away. I don't even want to willpower it. I do not want to be dry drunk, white knuckling this shit. Ugh. The truth is that if the man be a real alcoholic, the happy day may not arrive. He has lost control. At a certain point in the drinking of every alcoholic, he passes into a state where the most powerful desire to stop drinking is of absolutely no avail. This tragic situation has already arrived in practically every case before it is suspected. Yeah, that happened to me eventually. I just couldn't stop anymore. The fact is that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power of choice in drinking. Our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. We are unable at certain times to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force the memory of the suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. We are without defense against the first drink. Yeah, I don't know. I get like a month sober and I forget how bad things were prior to this go at sobriety. So early on, I had not lost the power in some circumstances. I was able to say no sometimes. And because of that, I was able to say, look, I'm not powerless over alcohol. I said no last night, right? Again, NA says powerless over our addiction, that our lives have become unmanageable. Alcoholics Anonymous says powerless over alcohol, that our lives have become unmanageable. I turned on it when I was 21, first AA meeting, whatever, right around then. I turned it down last week, Wednesday. Obviously, I'm not powerless. I turned it down. Was at the liquor store, got a bag of chips and beef jerky and Diet Coke. And yeah, see, not powerless. Guess this Alcoholics Anonymous thing ain't for me. Right? But I will say this: powerless over our addiction, powerless over this. If you're not able to snap your fingers and make the craving go away, if you're not able to snap your fingers and make the obsession go away, if you're not able to snap your fingers and make the anxiety go away, if you're not able to snap your fingers and make the depression go away, if you're not able to snap your fingers and make these things go away, you are powerless over them, right? And I listed a bunch of things: craving, obsession, anxiety, depression, right? These are the alcoholism thing, right? So I'm powerless over my alcoholism, right? I can't snap my finger and make this undesirable shit in my life go away. That qualifies me into step one. I'm powerless over my addiction and life becomes unmanageable. So don't count yourself out. Don't worry though. There is a solution. Your life is headed in a wonderful direction if you apply the stuff we're talking about here as we get to it. The almost certain consequence that follow taking even a glass of beer do not crowd into the mind to deter us. If these thoughts occur, they are hazy and readily supplanted with the old threadbare idea that this time we shall handle ourselves like other people. There's a complete failure of the kind of defense that keeps one from putting his hand to a hot stove, right? This is a great analogy here, is that the putting the hand to a hot stove thing is that, like, after I do that, I start to learn that I best be careful not to burn my hand on the hot stove, that reaching in the oven to try to get, like, to move the pizza and my arm hits the edge of the oven. I'm like very cautious of like where my forearm is when I'm reaching into the oven because I've been burnt like that and it hurts. The alcoholism and the problems that it causes us, we forget about that. Alcoholism lives in a type of brain that overrides that. So if you can relate to going back to drinking, back to using, despite it having kicked your butt, that's what it's talking about here. That's what it's talking about here. All right. The alcoholic may say to himself, in the most casual way, it won't burn me this time, so here's how. Or perhaps he doesn't think at all. How often have some of us began to drink in this nonchalant way, and after the third or fourth, pounded on the bar and said to ourselves, for God's sake, how did I ever get started again? Only to have thought supplanted it by, well, I'll stop with the sixth drink, or what's the use anyhow? All right, let me see. There's some words here that I don't know. Nonchalant, that means like casual. I know that. Um, Supplanted. All right, let's take a look. Supersede and replace. Only to have the thought superseded by, well, I'll stop by the sixth strength. Okay, or replace. For God's sake, how did I ever get started? Okay, so it's like, how did I get started? And then it's like, well, okay, well, I'll stop. I'll stop by the sixth strength. I don't know. This whole argument, once you get started, uh, it's just, hopefully you can find some relatability here. If not yet, maybe in the future. I really hope for anybody who's listening to this that none of this comes to fruition, and that by some just randomness you ended up listening to me and you're not an alcoholic. Well, actually, I don't hope for that. So this is a catch-22. Is I hope for it because you probably, maybe listening, you probably don't want it. So I hope for it for your little thing that you've got going. But on the other side of it, I want to let you know that I have a way better life than I would ever have if I wasn't an alcoholic. Because I'm an alcoholic, because I was forced into this new way of living, I have an extremely high quality of life. If I wasn't an alcoholic, I probably would have been kind of anxious and kind of miserable my whole life. But because of being pushed over and applying the principles of this program to my entire life, I have a way better life. And I wouldn't have applied these things to my life if I wasn't forced, on some level, forced into it by my alcoholism. All right, I want to check something real quick. All right. I'm going to turn the music up a little bit. It just seemed quiet. It's a trial and error process. It's registering on the audio mixer, so hopefully you guys will be able to hear it. If you absolutely hate the music, put it in the comments below. If you like it but want it a little bit louder, put it in the comments below. I do not take the time to go and re-listen to these all the way through and make adjustments after the fact of what the music is doing. So I kind of just try to get it to like a happy medium place, and then we record. When this sort of thinking is fully established in an individual with alcoholic tendencies, he has probably placed himself beyond human aid, and unless locked up, may die or go permanently insane. These stark and ugly facts have been confirmed by legions of alcoholics throughout history, but for the grace of God, there would have been thousands more convincing demonstrations. So many want to stop, but cannot. So when this sort of thinking is fully established in an individual with alcoholic tendencies, he has probably placed himself beyond human aid. When he's less locked up, he may die or go permanently insane. So this is pretty important here. So if you were relating to that last paragraph here, if you end up drinking and you don't know how it happened after you swore off of it a million times, it's kind of saying this is trouble. This is trouble. You may be beyond human aid, right? Things are likely to get pretty bad for you. Things are likely to get pretty bad for you. And what it's saying here is this has been confirmed. It's been confirmed for a lot of us. But for the grace of God, there would have been thousands more convincing demonstrations. So many wanted to stop, but you can't, right? If you're the place where you want to stop, but you can't. Behold, there is a solution. Good news. Almost none of us liked the self-searching, the level of pride, the confession of shortcomings, which the process requires for its successful consummation. Here we go. Let's get that one. I think it's like for its successful. The action of making a marriage or relationship complete. Oof, that's not. That's not the one I was looking for. Okay, at a point, at a point which something is complete or finalized. All right. So almost none of us like the self-searching, the level of pride, the leveling of our pride, the confession of shortcomings, which the process requires for its successful completion. But we saw that it really worked in others, and we had come to believe in the hopelessness and futility of life as we had been living it. We saw it really worked in others, and it had come to believe in the hopelessness and futility of life as we were living it. So I saw that other people were happy and joyous and free, and they were okay, and I had come to terms with the freaking mess hopelessness that my life was. When therefore we were approached by those in whom the problem had been solved, there was nothing left for us but to pick up the simple kit of spiritual tools that had been laid at our feet. We had found much of heaven, and we have been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence of which we had not even dreamed. Okay. So when therefore we were approached by those whom the problem had been solved, I'm approaching you right now. There was nothing left for us to do to pick up the simple kit of spiritual tools laid at our feet. So that is what I'm doing right now. I'm attempting through the book of Alcoholics Anonymous. None of this is handcrafted by me. Simple kit of spiritual tools. You pick it up, you apply this stuff to your life as a priority. Priority number one, foundation. Stay in this lane. You might do what we do, you get what we get. That's what people say. But we have found much heaven, and we have been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence of which we had not ever dreamed. I did not know that as an adult it was possible to be okay again. I thought adults were condemned to being crabby and anxious and depressed. I thought that was part of being an adult. But it's not. It's not. You are that same child that you were. You have the same heartbeat and you have the same brain in your skull. That child who once upon a time was happy, joyous, and free. And through walking through this program, you can get back to that. This fourth dimension of existence. If you do not have a happy childhood, you can still get here too. And you will like it that much more having never had it before. The great fact is just this and nothing less, that we have had deep and effective spiritual experiences which have revolutionized our whole attitude towards life, towards our fellows, and towards God's universe. That psychic change I talked about. Spiritual experience, spiritual awakening, psychic change. The way that I see things now is different than the way I saw them before. The central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty that our Creator has entered into our hearts and our lives in ways which is indeed miraculous. He has commenced to accomplish those things for us which we could never do by ourselves. I'm going to double highlight this one. Gosh darn it. All right, I was going to go for the triple, but double's good enough. All right. Okay, the great fact of this, and nothing less, that we have had deep and effective spiritual experiences which have revolutionized our whole attitude toward life, toward our fellows, and towards God's universe. The central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty that our Creator has entered into our hearts and lives in a way in which is indeed miraculous. He has commenced to accomplish those things for us which we could not do for ourselves, do by ourselves, right? God did for me what I could not do for myself. You will hear that a lot, right? I was not capable of being happy anymore. I was not capable of being relaxed. I was not capable of having fun anymore, right? God did for me what I could not do for myself, right? And also, I couldn't quit drinking, right? God did for me what I couldn't do for myself. I take this a step further. God did for me what I could not do for myself, right? Age 21, I had a girlfriend leave me. I was broken. I'm never gonna love anybody ever again. Oh, I ended up. It's actually what led to my first AA meeting. I went to an AA meeting because I stayed buried in the bottle. Well, I was supposed to be having real life responsibilities. I was in grad school, uh, but I would have, by my human intelligence, would have married that girl. Fast forward 10 years later, I can totally recognize that she was not the person who would have made me happy for the rest of my entire life. I can see that from a distance being removed from the situation, right? So when seemingly bad stuff happens to me, I have to remember that this is very high potential that God is doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. I wasn't smart enough to remove myself from that relationship. So he stepped in, did me a favor, did your boy a favor, and he did for me what I couldn't do for myself. And he went ahead and he had her leave me, right? So keep that in mind through this program. We'll see through a spiritual awakening, spiritual experience, things are going, your perspective will change. And when your perspective changes, it allows you to see that good things are happening in your life on a daily basis. Sometimes bad things are actually good things. I have a whole bunch I can say about this. I might do a separate set of videos just talking about some of this stuff because I love it. If you are seriously alcoholic as we are, we believe there is no middle of the road solution. We were in a position where if life was becoming impossible and if we had passed into the region from which there was no return through human aid, we had but two alternatives. One was to go on to the bitter end, blotting out the consciousness of our intolerable situation as best we could, and the other to accept spiritual help. This we did because we honestly wanted to and were willing to make the effort. Right? You were as serious an alcoholic as we were. We believe there's no middle road solution, right? So I was not, right, blotting it out to the bitter end. This is what I was going to do. I was just going to stay. I was going to continue using and drinking until I died, hoping it was going to be not that far in the future. Because I felt so hopeless. I felt so hopeless. I did not think that there was any hope for me when the drugs and alcohol stopped giving me emotional relief. However, I had to look to something else for a solution. Just so happens this is where I found it. This is something that I don't have the appendix on this PDF. I don't know. I don't want to bog down the momentum we have here by trying to pull it up. We've got 4 pages left, so I want to keep going. It talks about the spiritual experience in the back of the Alcoholics Anonymous book. If you're following along, if you've got your book, I suggest going and cracking it open, going taking a look, taking a read. The word spiritual experience might intimidate you. It kind of simplifies it, lets you know that the hoop is wider than you might think to jump through on that situation. A certain American businessman had ability, good sense, and high character. For years, he had floundered from one sanitarium to another. He had consulted the best-known American psychiatrist. Then he had gone to Europe, placing himself in the care of celebrated physician, the psychiatrist Dr. Young, who prescribed for him. Through experience had made him skeptical. Though experience had made him skeptical, he finished his treatment with unusual confidence. His physical and mental condition were unusually good. Above all, he had believed he had acquired such a profound knowledge of the inner workings of his mind and its hidden springs that relapse was unthinkable. Nevertheless, he was drunk in a short time. More baffling still, he could give himself no satisfactory explanation for his fail. Boom. He went to Europe. He worked with Dr. Young. Dr. Young. He's a famous psychiatrist, psychologist. worked hard with him, did a lot. Nevertheless, he was drunk in a short time. Frog. That's what happens to guys like me. I went to a lot of treatment centers and put in work. I participated. Nevertheless, PJ was drunk in a short time. Another spot. Neurofeedback. Nevertheless, he was drunk in a short period of time. EMDR. Nevertheless, he was drunk in a short time. So he returned to this doctor, whom he admired, and asked him point blank why he could not recover. He wished above all things to regain self-control. He seemed quite rational and well balanced with respect to other problems, yet he had no control whatsoever over alcohol. Why was this? He begged the doctor to tell him the whole truth, and he got it. In the doctor's judgment, he was utterly hopeless. He could never regain his position in society, and he would have to place himself under a lock and key or hire a bodyguard if he expected to live long. This was the great physician's opinion. So this was what Dr. Young said about this guy's alcoholism. This was the prognosis. You're screwed, man. You're screwed. Give up. Surrender. You're going to die from this. But this man still lives and is a free man. He does not need a bodyguard, nor is he confined. He can go anywhere on this earth where other free men may go without disaster, providing he remains willing to maintain a certain simple attitude. He's able to go do anything a free man can do, provided he remains willing to maintain a certain simple attitude. Well, let's check this out. What's the simple attitude? Some of our alcoholic leaders may think they can do without spiritual help. Let us tell you the rest of the conversation our friend had with this doctor. The doctor said, "You have the mind of a chronic alcoholic. I've never seen one single case recover where the state of mind exists to the extent that it does in you." Our friend felt as though the gates of hell had closed on him with a clang. He said to the doctor, "There is no exception?" "Yes," replied the doctor, "there is. Exceptions to cases such as yours have been occurring since early times. Here and there, once in a while, alcoholics have had what are called vital spiritual experiences. To me, these occurrences are phenomena. They appear to be in the nature of huge emotional displacements and rearrangements. Ideas, emotions, and attitudes which are once the guiding forces of the lives of these men are suddenly cast to the side, and a complete new set of conceptions and motives begin to dominate them. In fact, I have been trying to produce some such emotional rearrangements within you. With many individuals, the methods which I employed are successful, but I have never been successful with an alcoholic of your description." Here's another appendices item. Your homework. Go look it up. They appear to be in the nature. Right. Ideas, emotions, and attitudes which were once the guiding forces of the lives of these men are suddenly cast to one side, and a completely new set of conceptions and motives begin to dominate them. So I took this down, reduced myself back down to admitting I knew nothing about anything. For whatever reason, nothing I had learned about how to navigate life, how to think about the world, how to think about myself, my strategy for life was terrible. And I have been building this strategy ever since I was a little kid. And here I sit as a 31-year-old man when I got sober, and this shit is not working. So I reduced myself down to start fresh, to take my ideas, emotions, and attitudes, which were once the guiding forces of the lives of me, and I cast it to the side and adopted a completely new set of conceptions and motives. That's what I did. Upon hearing this, our friend was somewhat relieved, and he reflected that, after all, he was a good church member. This hope, however, was destroyed by the doctor telling him that while religious convictions were very good, in his case, they did not spell the necessary vital spiritual experience. Take note of that. It needs to be a little bit more or a little bit different than religion. Here was the terrible dilemma in which our friend found himself when he had the extraordinary experience, which, as we have already told you, made him a free man. We, in our turn, sought the same escape with all the desperation of drowning men. What seemed at first a flimsy reed has proven to be the loving and powerful hand of God. A new life has been given us, or, if you prefer, a design for living that really works. So he had to have had a spiritual experience, right? And a lot of people will say that the steps, working the 12 steps, are a path to a spiritual awakening. In my opinion, it's the quickest and easiest way to have a spiritual experience, a spiritual awakening, because there's a lot of house cleaning that has to happen before you can have a spiritual experience. If you have a bunch of emotional and spiritual baggage, you can't just go meditate on a mountain for a year and have the same spiritual experience you'd have if you went and cleaned house first. You have to clean out the resentments, the guilt, the shame, the character defects. You have to clean that up before you can have a spiritual experience, and that's what the steps do. The distinguished American psychologist William James, in his book Variety of Religious Experience, indicates a multitude of ways in which men have discovered God. We have no desire to convince anyone that there is only way by which faith can be acquired. If what we have learned and felt and seen means anything at all, it means that all of us, whatever our race, creed, or color, are the children of a living creator with whom we may form a relationship upon simple and understandable terms as soon as we are willing and honest enough to try. Those having religious affiliations will find here nothing disturbing their beliefs or ceremonies. There is no friction among us over such matters. Yes, it can be completely unique to you. We think it no concern of ours what religious bodies our members identify themselves with as individuals. This should be an entirely personal affair which each one decides for himself in the light of past associations or his present choice. Not all of us join religious bodies, but most of us favor such memberships. Right? It doesn't matter. I don't, right? I don't frequent church. I do enjoy them. I do enjoy Buddhist temples. I enjoy Hindu readings. I enjoy non-denominational Christian services. I like those. Those are fun for me. I've participated in them often at times. I was raised Catholic. I wear a "What Would Jesus Do" bracelet just to remind me to do the right thing. So, but I do have strong spirituality. I love it. I have listened to a lot of books. I love listening to books on different spiritual ideas, and I found ones that resonated deep in my heart, where my heart told me that this is possibly what's up. This is potentially what's really actually going on here. And it's been good. It's been good for me. That being said, there's no need for me to, unless it's just for fun, to have a conversation about your belief system, because all that matters is that you have one. And it doesn't, that's even a stretch, because even though ultimately you need to get one at some point, the starting step, the precursor to that, is just doing the suggestions of the program. My sponsor tell guys pray in the morning, and the guy's like, pray? I don't believe in that stuff. And he's like, I didn't ask if you believed. I just told you to do it, right? It doesn't matter if you believe in the beginning. The belief will come later. Just do the suggestions and you're going to get the results. In the following chapters, there appears an explanation of alcoholism. Well, that would be good. As we understand it, then a chapter addressed to the agnostic. Many who once were in this class are now among our members. So even if you're agnostic, That's all right. Come on in. Surprisingly enough, we find such convictions no great obstacle to a spiritual experience. Right? Don't worry. Don't worry if you think this is some sort of hurdle. Don't worry about it. Just take the suggestions, do what we do, and you'll get what we get. Further on, clear-cut directions are given, shown how we recover. These are followed by 42 personal experiences. That's the stories at the end of the book. I've been listening to those while I've been falling asleep. It's a lot of pages. I do not know if I'm going to read those with you guys on here because it's 42 stories and they're all pretty decently long. But I've been listening to them before bed lately, and I've been enjoying them. Further on, clear-cut directions are given, showing how we recovered. These are followed by 42 personal experiences. Each individual in the personal stories describes in his own language and from his own point of view the way he established his relationship with God. These give a fair cross-section of our membership and a clear-cut idea of what has actually happened in their lives. We hope no one will consider these self-revealing accounts in bad taste. Our hope is that many alcoholic men and women desperately in need will see these pages, and we believe that it is only by fully disclosing ourselves and our problems that they will be persuaded to say, yes, I am one of them too. I must have this thing. Right. And hopefully by me chatting, sharing some of this with you guys, maybe that you guys can say like, oh yeah, sure. I think that like I vibe, I get what he's saying, right? Hopefully that I can help some of you guys get on board the, I want to say get on board the crazy train, but no, I just hope that you guys can, I hope that you guys are able to make a decision to give this stuff a go, to participate in the process. And I also want to give you hope that this is not doom and gloom. There is happiness, joy, and freedom on the other side of this. There's a better life waiting for you than you would have had if you're never an alcoholic. You've never had it. It's here. It's good. I'm enjoying it. Enjoyed yet another week of sobriety. Creeping up into Christmas time, creeping up into Hanukkah, holiday time. Stuff is coming. I personally get a little off emotionally during fall, winter. Happens every year, but because of this program, I don't end up face down, ass up because of my alcoholism. All right, you guys. I hope you have a good rest of your weekend. Kill it this week. Try to have some fun. Smile. Good things coming for you. Good night.